Morning all, welcome back to the Broken Biscuit Repair Shop. Today's job, we're going to work on a pool ball. I've got an order come in for a pool ball skull. This one, rather unusual design. This one is black and red, usually they're red and white. The client has asked for this ball in particular, being the 11 ball, so that's what we're going to use today. So yeah, I've been carving pool balls for coming up for 10 years now, so I've done a lot of these. They've been a constant staple in my work. I've been basically living off this now for the last 7 years, but doing it commercially for best part of 10 years. I usually just do the classic 8, just a standard black skull out of the 8 ball. Whenever I share these online, the first comment I usually get is that I'm ripping off Bobby Duke Arts, who's an American artist who made a YouTube video 5 years ago maybe, where he carved an 8 ball into a skull. So I get a lot of his fans and followers badgering me, saying that I'm ripping off Bobby and I should be crediting him in my artwork, and that he's you know, he did it first and all this sort of stuff. But whereas in reality, Bobby messaged me about 5 years ago and asked did I mind if he did it. He'd seen me doing it. I've known Bobby years, we've been good friends, and he wanted to do one for a YouTube video, and I said, yeah, fill your boots. I don't own pool balls, I don't own pool ball carving. I've gone a bit further than anyone else has, but I don't mind other people doing it. So I said to Bobby, yeah, sure, do that. So yeah, Bobby did a really good job. His one is one of the better pool ball skulls I've seen. A lot of people do it, some better than others, but Bobby did a really good job. So yeah, I still get berated quite often that I should be crediting Bobby for my artwork, which is quite the opposite. Bobby did credit me in the start of his video and said that he'd seen my work and showed it on the video, and said that he'd asked and he was inspired by what I did. So that's fair enough, I've got no problem with Bobby, but his fans are a pain in my arse basically. So if you've come to tell me anything about Bobby Duke Arts, clear off. I'm not interested. But anyway, today, that's the job. Finish my tea first, because you get dust with this job. This is the problem with pool balls, they are dusty. And it's not good dust. This stuff you do not want in your system. Definitely a dust mask job. High impact polymer resin, so it's not something you need to digest a whole lot of. I've also got this, which is a hazmat style dust suit for that Heisenberg look. We'll drain this and crack on. Pretty much dust proof. I'm going to rough this ball up all over because I need to make pen marks on the ball, and while it's polished and smooth, nothing sticks to it. So right, that's how I pop this on, just so we don't die. Right, give it a key so the ink will stick. Always have a good look at the ball, because sometimes the number spots aren't quite in polarity, north and south. Sometimes one will be slightly off centre, which this one is slightly. For a silver marker made by Sharpie, they are completely useless. So here's a black marker. So it'll still show up on black plastic. Another reason for doing it, as I've done, at least the black ink will show up on the grey of the plastic once it's rough. So I have that one as the top, so I'll give him a pointer. That way I know this is the face side, not the back side, because there's nothing worse than getting halfway through a skull and realising you've done it backwards. we mark it out like this, I can very quickly work out what I'm going to take off first, which is the initial grinding is quite aggressive, and a lot of the ball will vanish in the next couple of minutes. Basically, I just grind the sides off. I'm not going to mess about with these. I've done enough of them now to know exactly what comes off and what stays. So if we're doing it like this, I've got quick and easy way in. So by the time I've finished, the finished skull is going to be somewhere just under 60 grams, which means that about 2/3 of the ball are going to be lost. Yeah, we're 172.25 grams, so we're going to lose about 110 grams. So there's quite a lot to come off, so I don't mess about. We're using a belt sander under the table. I'm going to bosh that over the belt sander, chop the sides off, chop the bottom off, square it up, and that's where the skull is going to come from. So we definitely mask up for this bit, because dust is going to fly. Squared him off. I've probably taken off 60 grams probably. Readjust my lines, make sure that they are exactly where I want them. So that's going to be his jaw. Looking at the base of the skull, there's a jawbone, it's going to be there. So I'm now going to go back to sander, facet the sides of the face, the underside, start to round him off, take off a lot more yet, and grind him down to the basics of a skull. It's 3.5 minutes in, and that's the basics of our skull. So what have we lost? Just over 100 grams, 102. So we've taken off about 70 grams already. So that's a good start. Now it slows down a little bit. Fair enough. I'm looking to lay in some features, only roughly, but it gives me a guide on where to put the lines. You'll notice a few times I'll draw that centre line. Keep coming back to that because you want symmetry. It's not vital in a skull because most of the time in life skulls are not that symmetrical, but in artwork, if you at least try and get them equal, it does make them look a little bit better. You don't want a wonky skull at the end of the day. So yeah, with that, and I'll put his nose in. Not that skulls rightly have a nose, but they have a nasal opening, so we'll put that there. And from there we can space the eyes. So that'll be his face, basically. these cheekbones, or zygomatic arches as they should be called. I usually spend a bit of time doing this because it's easier to pick out your lines and get symmetry while working with a pen than it is carving it twice because you've gone wrong. So this part of the job is with taking slowly and just observing, really. Keep checking back to your lines and make sure you've not gone off piste. Right, so that's a good start. Now the most common question or comment I get is, what tools do you use? A lot of people still imagine that pool balls are some sort of glass, ceramic, clay. I've had a lot of people say, "Are they made out of clay?" And no, they're plastic. So carving them, well, it's a little bit tricky. It's not impossible, and I usually go in with carbides, little bladed rotary burrs. They'll shred through plastic in no time. You get a nice, clean, smooth cut. So I go with those mostly. As you can see, I've got millions of them, but there's always one or two that you use time and time again. You buy them in a set of about 10, and probably 8 of them never leave the packet, to be quite honest. But that's how I'm going to tackle this. So we're dusted up, suited up, mask on, and this is where it gets a bit close up. I'll put the camera over the top and try and show you what I'm doing. So this isn't going to be a how-to guide. I'm just showing you some of the methods I'm going to use to do this. By no means is this a tutorial. It's just letting you in to come and have a look, because there's always a lot of questions, which I'm happy to answer, but I'm not teaching anyone how to do it. Basically, I've done that, and that always leads to competition. Basically, everyone I've shown how to do it goes away and does it, and now I've ended up creating my own competition at times, or that's certainly how I used to see it. I spent a lot of time worrying about what other people were doing, because it did knock a bit of a hole in the business for a while, especially after Bobby did his tutorial video. There was just an influx of copycat carvings, basically. They were popping up everywhere, everyone was doing it, selling them for a lot cheaper than I do. Fair enough, you pick your own prices, but I was then trying to compete at prices I'm really not interested in carving for, so I probably lost a few customers from that, but to be honest, I still do it. It's still my living, and some people are guided by the price. They would just want to buy it cheap as possible. Other people are buying the art, so I've still got a good basis of customers who are happy to invest with my artworks, so I stopped worrying what other people are doing. In art, you should only ever compete with yourself. So long as each time I carve one of these it's slightly better than the one I did yesterday, I'm quite happy with that. I don't care what anyone else is doing. But there are things I don't show people, simply because in 10 or 15 years of doing this, I've developed my own little methods and tricks that I'd rather keep to myself, because if I make it too easy, I'm just saving them legwork, and that's it. I have taught art, that's not what I'm doing now. I'm just showing you how I do it. So yeah, cool, here we go. So you can see basically where we're heading. That's the basics of the skull. Basically there we're gonna spend the next couple of hours now. We'll use various carbides and rough him out all over. Take off anything I don't want, basically. And that is quite a long, drawn out process. So there's not a lot to see that you haven't seen already. It's just a case of using different shaped burrs, getting different shaped holes, and just start to create a skull. Which is another reason I don't usually teach skull carving to anyone. I can show you the tools, I can show you what they do, but showing you how to carve a skull is virtually impossible. You've got to study, you've got to know skulls inside and out, you've got to spend years studying your form. To carve an accurate skull you need to know what you're looking at. So while I can show you tools and show you how to switch it off and on, I can't show you how to form a skull without years of study. It's going to be tricky. By all means have a go. Maybe you don't want to make anatomically correct skulls. A lot of people are just happy to make an essence of a skull, which is fair enough. You can do that. That's not entirely up to anyone else, but I'm not here to teach how to carve skulls because there's slightly more to it than what tools do you use. So anyway, so I won't film all of this because it'll be boring as watching paint dry basically. It's just hours and hours of shaping and grinding. So I'll show you a little bit and then I'll crack on without you. Alright, so that is roughing out. As you can see, it's all totally freehand. I've got the skulls up here I use for reference. I haven't had to refer to them once because after many thousands of these, it's like signing my name now. It's not something I have to think about. It's not a shape I'm unsure of. You know, I've done that many of them. I can line them up and just keep doing them, which is why it's really difficult to teach this stuff, because that only comes with time and experience. I can't give you that. So I can show you the tools, show you how I do it, but getting that knowledge of form and shape down takes years and years of experience, practice, patience and repetition. I'm often asked, do I get bored, keep carving skulls? And I say, no, because I'm learning all the time. Every one I do, it will be different to the last one in some way. Doing them the same is nearly impossible. So I just keep going, keep exploring, keep repeating the same pattern, but finding tiny aspects to change that leave me new ground to go to. Let me centre line back in, because you need to keep that in mind at all turns. Start to bore in. I get holes started and start to work on the frame of the skull. Skulls aren't a solid object. You've got tunnels, you've got holes, spaces, and it's the negative space I'm trying to capture. So anyone can carve a solid skull, that's the easy part, but getting this lifelike framework is an entirely different game. So the next job will be to start drilling into these tunnels. Once I've got a hole, I can get in there and wheedle them out, start to ream out the holes and get them shaped up as a functional skull. Again, it's a bladed tungsten carbide burr, just allows me to drill in, smooth out a nice little tunnel. I'll get you in close again, you can just see how I do this next bit. So, there's our tunnels started. Gives us the basic frameworks of our skull. So from that I can start to hollow out under here, get down into these spaces, start creating some realistic shapes. So, right, we've gone a bit deeper, widened the tunnels out, put some shape to it. Once I get the orbital sockets shaped up finally, I'll put tunnels through the floor of the eye sockets, and that'll then help me work out under here how deep to go and refine the shapes, get them down to measurement. As I said in my last video, there are portions of a skull that most carvers ignore or can't be bothered with. But if I'm carving a skull, it's the whole skull. I'm going to do all the details I can possibly fit on it. So what I do is mark the top of the skull, because nobody's skull is completely round. There are various shapes. So we're marking those out. Give me a visual guide on how to give him realistic proportions. Right, so there we go. That's what I term the rough out. He's shaped. There's nothing showing of the original surface of the ball. I've taken everything off to a fresh surface, so I've not left any flat spots or anything of its original surface really. So if I'm going to carve a skull, I carve the whole skull, I go all around it. Every part is carved. They're very subtle differences. You probably can't even see them on the camera, but in the hand they definitely make a difference. And in the finished skull, it's these little details that set them apart from the rest of the pack. We have smoothed him off somewhat, so I'm not going to do too much more than that for now, because there's still surface work to be done. It's just nice if it's smooth and you can see exactly where you're aiming. And then we need to work on the nose and the teeth. So if we mark on exactly where we need, so that centre line, you need to refer to that over and over. So keep that on while you're working. Try and get his nose exactly in the middle. Nothing worse than a wonky snout. Yeah, that'll do. Mark the floor of the orbital sockets next. Not even sure what those are called, to be honest, but there is holes in the bottom of the eye sockets. I'll show you. See there, in the, you've got a hole and a slot cut in the bottom, which come out under here. So once I get those in, I can then hollow out from behind, watch them through these holes to see how thin I've got the wall of the eye socket. Just helps depth gauge basically, so I don't go busting right through, which I have done at times, not for a few years, but I know on the first ones that was something I struggled with. You'd be thinning out, next thing you know, pop, you come through the other side and you've no longer got an eye socket. So we using smaller burrs now. I usually use dental tools at this stage. You can see the damn thing. Now, wise man would keep your desk tidy so you can see what he's doing, but that is not how I've ever operated. Generally, working absolute chaos. But that's how I do it, so can't help that. Right, so we have now got holes through the eye sockets. See if we can illustrate what we've done by, you can see he's now got slots in the floors of the orbital socket, which will mean we can now hollow out behind, get all this shaped up. And that's the frame of the face done. We'll lay the teeth in. Gives us a nice starting point to start putting the teeth in now. We've got the face frame done. We've got the dentures in, that will be coming on quite nicely. And again, as I said in the previous video with the big skull, it's these little bits that people don't look at. Nobody sees these bits, but they do see them. They might not know they've seen them, but they do make a difference. So we're taking the time to do the little bits that no one looks at. You get a much more detailed, realistic looking skull, even if people aren't sure quite why. So the next job, marking up the teeth. So we refer to our centre line, that gives you a line between your incisors. All we're going to do is roughly pencil these on, and then when I'm sure I've got it spaced how I want it, go over it with a micro marker. That'll be the final plan. top set marked on with ink. So that's the dental plan. I'm going to drop in with some tiny little dental tools, get them all cut out. The plan with these, eventually I'll go right the way through, so you get a gap between each tooth, makes them a lot more detailed and realistic, but it's quite fine work. It takes a long time to do a set of teeth, usually about as long as it takes me to do the entire skull. So again, I won't bore you with all the details, but I'll show you what I can. Yeah, I think for now, a cup of tea and a sandwich, call that lunch, and we'll tackle the teeth after dinner. Cool. Wind and the rain is now coming in. It's Halloween today as well, so that'll keep the trick-or-treaters out of the way. Bless them. Right. So next we need some quite fine bits. Just out of interest, that is the drill bit I'm using. And this is a 3mm shank, but it goes down to less than 1/2 mm for the actual drill bit. So there's a tiny, tiny little hole. And if they break out inside the pull ball, they are a massive pain in the bum to get out. But it does happen. So we'll go back to a smaller bit. But now I've got a hole drilled through. Start to create the gaps. That's the bit I was looking for. There we go, we've got the teeth marked out. So the next job is to shape each tooth, carve them over and make them look like real teeth. One of the other arguments I've often had online is people say, well, you're not hand carving them, you're using a machine. But as you can see, there's still quite a lot of control, skill, practice and patience in using a machine. It makes it quicker, but it doesn't make it any easier. And that's a conversation I've had with a lot of people who are almost disappointed to see me using a motorised tool. Could I sit and do this with a knife? Yeah, definitely, and I have done, but it's pointless. I can carve this skull in a day from start to finish. If I was doing it with a knife, that's a month's work. Nobody's going to pay me to do that. So I make it quick, I make it easy. Save myself time, energy and effort by using a motorised tool. But it's amazing the amount of people who see that as somehow cheating. The technology is there, use it. So I don't see it as any more of a cheat than if I was a guitarist and I bought an electric guitar or played a keyboard rather than an old ivory and ebony piano. I mean, it's modern technology. You can use it without shortcutting or cheating, there's no fraud in it. It's an easier way of doing it. It's like cooking on a gas stove. Yeah, you could go and get some logs, build a fire, get your frying pan out, but who does that today? You want to come home, flick the oven on, chuck a pie in, and that's your dinner done. So why people seem to argue about that, I never quite understand. I've got a plethora of hand tools up here that do the same job, but if we were to sit here and scrape each line out by hand, it's going to take me an hour to do one toothbrush, I think. I think it works, definitely. And it's a nice way of doing it. Sometimes I'll go back to two hand tools for that reason, just for the mindfulness of doing it up close and personal. But for commercial purposes, when I'm selling a skull, it's got to be done in a realistic time frame. So I ain't faffing about with hand tools at that stage. Right, I'll shape these teeth now, we'll get them set in. So as you can appreciate, the teeth are a long job. You'll be up close and personal and keep your wits about you, because one slip there's a tooth gone. So he's now got a set of teeth. And eventually I'll mine out behind those until I meet the gaps, and very carefully go through each one so each tooth is separate and it's got a gap behind it. For no other reason than it amuses me greatly. Right. But for now, I'm going to work on the contours of the face. Now I know where the teeth are, I can start to shape the features, give him character, make it individual by working on the surface of the face and get all of the little grooves, contours, dips and divots, things that make it look like a human skull. So that's quite a fun part of the job, that. It's like a reward after the marathon that the teeth are. It's quite nice to then explore shapes and patterns and start creating a bit of character. So go with that for now. So if you look at him, he's quite a handsome chap already, really, but his face is flat. There's no real definition or character. If you look at a real skull, you've got hollows, dents, contours, grooves, just character, shapes in the character. So I'm going to spend a bit of time now and get him unique. You can see he's got shape, contour, character. And the rest is just refinement now. I'll keep picking away and smoothing, cleaning, tightening up the lines, widening the gaps till everything meets, joins together. Should become a tidy little skull before we polish. Right, well, it's a long day, but we are skull shaped. Haven't done the underside yet. There's a lot of detail on the cranial floor to put in tomorrow. Drill in, hollow out, and then we're going to start smoothing him off to polish. I'll add the cranial details, the sutures, the textures, get all the little nerve endings and holes set in, give him as much detail as we can before we polish him up. But I've just been mining behind the teeth. See there, he's got gaps between each tooth now, which again is a detail most skull carvers can't be bothered with, but as I said before, if I'm carving a skull, I'm carving all of the skull. So he's got separate teeth, his nose holes go right through, the eye sockets go right through, so we're getting a realistic framework. The fragility of form and function is what I'm trying to capture. So yeah, it's coming on alright, but it's now getting dark, it's getting cold, and it's Friday, so I'm going to call that a day, finish him off tomorrow. Cheers. Morning all. Right, welcome back to the Broken Biscuit Repair Shop for day 2. He's not far off now from here, it's not a colossal challenge. A lot of people are often amazed at how fast I work. I can do one of these in the time I do, which works quite well for me. It looks like weeks of work, but generally I can do one in a day. If I start early and work late, I can fit one in a day quite easily. So yeah, they're not as much, well, they are as much work as they look, but that doesn't take as long as it looks. I mean, it's only small. If it was the size of my head, yeah, it would take a week, but on this scale you can move quite fast, which is handy. It's a repetition that has brought me that. By doing this, I don't know how many I've carved now, to be quite honest. It'll be in the thousands. The first one, yeah, it took me correctly weeks to put it down and picking it up, and I wasn't sure of the path, and I didn't really know what I was doing, in fairness. I just made it up as I went along. It turned out right, in fairness. So looking back, it was a good start. Somehow they got worse. The next few I carved, when I look back at the pictures, are absolutely shocking. I don't know where I was looking, but the first one was actually a nice shaped skull. But through practice and through years of perseverance, constant small changes, I was able to refine it and perfect it, and speed up. I got it down to a science now. You can see on this video, I take off the bits I don't need in seconds, because I know exactly where to stop and what stays and what goes, and it's only through repeat performance of that I've managed to speed it up to the stage we're at now. Some people feel that should reflect the value of the product. Like, when it takes you a day to carve, why are you charging £300? I'm like, well, I'm charging for all them years when I was struggling. So I was practicing, failing, breaking them and not getting them right. It's all factors in what it costs today. It's that investment of all those years I had to put aside to get here. You're going to pay for that if you buy a skull today. So that's where we're at. I mean, I don't apologise for that. I set that value because that's what it's worth to me to do it. Some people can afford it, some people can't. It's not medicine, it's not fresh water, it's not food. I've got no concerns about charging what I charge for my art, because it's an amusing object, serves no purpose whatsoever. If somebody wants it, they'll buy it. If they don't, well, that's not for them. I don't argue about prices anymore. I used to, but there's literally no point. It is what it is. That's what I charge for it. If people want it, they pay for it. If they don't, well, someone else will. So I'm not gonna argue about prices anymore, because somebody's financial situation is their concern, not mine. That's the way I see it anyway. So today we'll get the underside done, and I'm gonna lay the sutural lines on, add the texture details. I think then we're ready to polish, so I'll probably do that in an hour. It's been a bit slower this time. Well, it's running the second day basically, because I'm talking to you lot. And I'm stopping and faffing about with cameras, looking at getting it presentable for you. You know, if I'm just in here and I've locked the door and I can buzz through that in a day. But explaining what I'm doing, showing what I'm doing, obviously takes longer. So yeah, but there's no hurry. You shouldn't ever rush art. You shouldn't have to hurry it. It's an investment of time and space. So yeah, I noticed this morning, I set the camera up and there's a crack across the lens cover. So part of yesterday's footage, it's got a little ghost of my hands up in the corner here somewhere. So I apologise for that. That's a camera fault. We're not haunted in here. So yeah, if you noticed that, that's what it is. I've peeled the little cover off, and it's gone in the bin, and a new one is on its way, courtesy of my friend Mr. Bezos. So we will persevere, and yeah, I'll drink my tea. We'll crack on. Here's an interesting little feature of pool balls that some people notice. If you look under his jaw there, look, there's that lighter coloured stripe in the black. It also appears under the arch here. You can just about see it there. Now that is the brace that holds the number spot. When they make a pool ball, they start with two of these numbers, on each side, and they brace them into the mould in the polar opposites in this spherical mould, I assume. And they put the spots in, then they'll bend a little twig of, sometimes it's bamboo, sometimes it's softwood, sometimes it's a strange fibrous material, looks a bit like a carpet tile or something like that, but it's basically any strip of what they've got, and they use that to brace the spots into the mould. Then they pour the colour in. So the white bit's going first, and then the black is poured in afterwards. And that little matchstick-like brace stays within the ball. But the strange thing is, they always come out in the same place when you carve a skull. They're always somewhere in this side of the jaw and somewhere up this side of the zygomatic arch. Sometimes they show up worse than others, and the worst case is when they actually go through the arch, because then it's, you've got to scrap it then, because that'll only ever snap off. So I have to be quite careful working around those. But a lot of people have asked what they are. They notice them in the skull, especially in the 8 balls. They show up in the black ball. I'll put ink on them and stain them black just so they don't show up quite so bad. I mean, they're not a problem. They're part of the pool ball. I always say that's provenance that it is an actual pool ball and not just a 3D print or whatever they do nowadays. Yes, part of the ball's story. There is more expensive balls made by a firm called Aramith, and that number is a solid core. If you think of the core of an apple, it's like that. It's a solid beam of white material with the number on each end, but like a stick of rock, and that goes right the way through the ball. So those ones, as you carve in, you've always got a white space. You often see it in the back of the eye sockets. When you go in deep enough, you'll meet the meet the core. They're very expensive balls, they're very well made, incredibly hard, they polish up beautifully, but I don't like them for skull carving. They don't like being opened. The material in the middle, it's not as stable as these cheaper ones really. Once you take off the outer coating, I don't know if it's UV light or what it is, but they tend to do odd things. If you're not very careful and keep them out of the sun, they can start to crackle. You get little anomalies appear in the plastic. So I don't often use aramith balls for that reason. I don't rate them for carving. I'm sure they're great for playing pool with, probably second to none, because they're made to a specification that these ones won't be. So yeah, but for carving, they're absolute bobbins. So basically I'm going to drill the holes under there and get the floor planned out. Then I can go in and hollow out behind it. Again, that's a lot of the ball by weight removed. I take out as much on the inside as I can, just because it makes it more interesting basically. If you get something, oh wow, it's hollow, gives it an extra level of reality. But I've got a lot of people who have asked me in the past that didn't realise pool balls were hollow. I said, well, they're not. I hollow them out. But they often look in there and assume that there's a natural hollow, and I've worked around it. I say, well, no, they're solid. All that is extra work. So yeah, that's why I do that. So, as I said in the last video, it's these little bits that make all the difference. They're the bits where nobody goes, nobody sees, but they do make a difference. So I always add these hidden details. And those that find them do appreciate that little extra. So yeah, always work underneath, always work inside, and take off all I can really. What are we weighing now? 58 grams, so we are well on target. So usually around 60-62 grams time I'm finished, so I've obviously gone a little bit further than that than I thought I would, but that's good. There's still more to come off yet, because I haven't quite finished. Got a little bit more work to do behind them teeth. I've got to clean up in the roof of the mouth, and from there we're pretty much on the home straight. Right, I won't bore you with those details because it's just the same. Lots and lots of pinpoint work now with these little, I'm using micro burrs, tiny little ball ends on them, which I use for highlighting details, picking out hoodles, cavities. So there's not much to see, not yet. Jolly good. I'll finish the clean up under there and we'll start sanding him down. So I've worked all over. Put some texture in, some sutures between the cranial plates. Added all the hidden details. So now I need to carefully sand him all down, get him nice and smooth so we can polish. But I need to do that without removing the details. So I work with abrasives which are, this one's 220, which is still quite coarse, but there's a couple of tool marks to get out under there. Then I'll drop back to 400 grit, go with that. And somewhere I've got a bundle of wire wool, make sure it's nice and smooth, then I'll polish him, call him done, send him home. Cool. Right, nice and smooth, starting to shine. The closer I get to the finish, the darker the red will become, the blacker the black will become, and it'll really start to pop. The actual finishing is something I don't show. One of the things that I've always worked quite hard on is protecting that part of what I do. A lot of the other people who carve pool balls don't get the finish. Somebody just haven't worked it out yet, so I don't give that bit away. I will finish this one in a second, and I'll show you when he's done. But unfortunately, that is one of my secrets. I like to keep under wraps wherever I can. I mean, it's not rocket science. If somebody wants to figure out how to polish a piece of acrylic, it's not it's not some fabled secret that's hidden in the Ark of the Covenant. It's out there, but I'm not going to show you how I do these because this bit's mine. Anyway, right, I'll crack on, show you when we're done. So there we go, that's the end product. Two I've done this week. Next week I've got to do a whole set, so that'll be fun. They're the same black marble balls, so we're going to start on that Monday. I'll call these two done, wrap them up and get them off to their new owners. So yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for staying the distance, anyone who did, and yeah, I'll catch you next time, see what else we can do. Jolly good, take care, look after each other, stay gold. Cheers.